See?
I don't see anything
Hold
yet.
on, it's still circling.
Still circling.
Okay. It could just be internet connection.
Really?
Because I had that problem a few weeks ago with my computer.
Okay.
It's live now. You can see it.
Oh, you can see.
Okay.
Yeah, it has the Welcome to Inside Times with Cynthia White educational program brought to you by Kids Are Too White with the picture.
Great.
Okay. All right.
Can you hear me? We are now live with Inside Times.
Okay, I'll jump off.
Oh, no. Can you see?
Yeah.
But how about our face?
No face yet.
No face
Well,
yet?
that's because I'm sharing the screen with my PowerPoint.
Okay.
How do I go back and forth?
There should be a stop sharing button.
Okay. Got it.
All right.
There, but I haven't seen the stop sharing button yet.
No, not yet.
Okay. Welcome to Inside Times, everybody. We're having technical difficulties, but hopefully that won't last too long, and we'll be able to come back and share our faces. But in the meantime, I'd like to welcome you to this program today. We're going to be talking about health, growth, and restoration after trauma. First of all, I want to give you some basic information that helps you understand that trauma is in your body. It's not in the past. You can't change the past, but you can change your body. And so you can heal trauma today. Doesn't matter what happened in the past, it matters what happens now and what you do to heal your own body. The trauma response depends on individual characteristics. We're all individuals and unique, and so how we respond is also going to be unique. How one recovers from trauma depends on the environment, how you surround yourself with safe and healing and helpful people and create an environment that promotes your healing. There are two types of trauma. One is a one-time event. This trauma type 2 is ongoing and multiple events. Some say there's even a type 3, which is a combination of ongoing and multiple events and a one-time event, and they would call that a type 3. Some will exhibit a fight response. Is there a lag in things catching up? So we're just going to wait a second for the video to catch up. So a one-time event. There we go. This type 2 is ongoing and multiple events. I'm going to hear it again. There we go. Some will exhibit a fight response. Okay. These are children who get angry, who fight a lot, argue with you a lot. They get to see the principal. They're the ones who get the attention because their behaviors are so concerning. But again, remember, this is a survival response. Some will exhibit a flight response. They want to run away. They want to be left alone. They isolate from others. They just want to get out and get away. It's not you, it's their body having a trauma response. Some will freeze. These are children or adults who disengage, don't want to talk. They also isolate. They'll stare into space. They freeze. That mouse isn't dead, it's frozen. And this is how our bodies helps us survive. Are there any questions?
No. Jamie and
Megumi,
Toshi,
you're watching. Thank you. Thank you for
Toshihiro,
watching.
Ide-san, with us.
Yeah.
Megumi-san's watching.
Nice. Well, I hope you can hear the audio that goes with the pictures.
Mhm.
We have it muted here so that it's not also coming into you. So let's talk about what studies are showing us. The National Child Traumatic Stress Network recognizes the following types of stress, traumatic stress: community violence, complex trauma, like all types of child abuse, neglect, and domestic violence, medical trauma, which might be what many people are experiencing right now. Medical trauma is like a serious illness, a surgery, fear of getting ill, and I think that's where many of us are. We're social distancing, staying at home, only going out when it's necessary to protect ourselves and our families. Thank you for doing that. Disasters, of course, are traumatizing. School violence, like bullying, is traumatizing. That's why it's so important to stop bullying in schools, because it's harming our children, and this harm can be a lifelong problem. So let's all work together to stop bullying. Terrorism, which is a form of bullying in a way, only much worse. Fortunately, we don't have a lot of that in our country. Any of it is too much. And then traumatic grief as from violent deaths, like homicide or car crashes. These are also traumatizing. Now, trauma can't often be avoided, and there are consequences to trauma. And understanding those consequences of trauma is important, because then you're better able to manage the impact of trauma. If you understand what it does to your body, then you can work to change your body. Excuse me. Okay. So, consequences of trauma. The National Child Traumatic Stress Network says most trauma results in emotional dysregulation and the loss of safety, direction, and the ability to detect or respond to danger. This is important to understand. Emotional dysregulation, what does that mean? That means I can't control my emotional responses to things. So you'll see children responding to what seems like a very small thing in a very big way, that their emotions are way more intense than what actually happened. They may go from rage to withdrawal in a very short amount of time, because they cannot regulate their emotions. The loss of safety. When we're traumatized, we don't feel safe. The world doesn't feel safe. So our body is in constant state of fear and just withdrawing or doing whatever we need to do to stay safe. Loss of direction. Children often don't know if there's going to be a future for them. They don't know what they want to do. They don't know why they need to do this now, because this will help them later. They can't grasp that. And that can be very frustrating and difficult. And there can be a loss of the ability to detect or respond to danger. This is important to understand, because victims of domestic violence often don't recognize that the person they're with is not a safe person. And so they'll choose an abuser who is like the person who abused them in childhood because they cannot detect that danger. And they often go back into a situation because they don't respond to the danger in the same way that a non-traumatized person does. So that, a lot of people think, well, why don't you choose something different? But honestly, choosing what you have now might feel safer because you know what it is, where going to something you don't know what it is could feel like a threat. So we lose that ability to detect and respond to danger. And we have to develop that again. But as a result of trauma, it's diminished or lost. Now, trauma is how the body survives danger. It is a function of not of our mind, but of our physical body and the nervous system that we have. And I'm going to explain more about that in terms of the nervous system as we move along. It's a function of the vagus nervous system, which controls virtually every system in our body and all of our autonomic functions like breathing and heart rate and digestion and the vagus nerve is the largest nerve in the body and a central nerve. As you can see, it goes from the bottom of the brain all the way down to the bottom of the spine. And there's different aspects to this nervous system. One of them is when you're traumatized. They found that most traumatized children have a higher resting heart rate. What does this mean? This means they're in a constant state of fear because their heart is racing. A non-traumatized child might have a resting heart rate of between 80 and 90. A traumatized child will have a resting heart rate of 100 or more. So that aspect of the way their body is functioning is going to keep them in a state of trauma. And trauma has lifelong health consequences. If you don't get the treatment you need as soon after trauma as possible, then it could result in lifelong health consequences because of the fact that it has an effect on our physical body. And I'll talk more about those. A healthy vagus nerve is vital in experiencing empathy and fostering social bonding. And it is crucial to our ability to observe, perceive, and make complex decisions. A healthy vagus nerve is a vagus nerve that is calm. And so calming the vagus nerve is going to be one of the primary objectives in recovering from trauma. Click on there. And then you can read. Okay. Thank you for tuning in. If you've just tuned in, this is Inside Times talking about health, growth, and restoration after trauma. One thing to understand too is that victims of crime, they are traumatized and they need intervention and support as soon as possible after their trauma. That's not always available. Not always available to children, not always available to adults. But the sooner intervention is provided, the better chance they have of calming the vagus nerve down so that they can have a healthy vagus nerve. So, tests revealed that people with impaired vagal activity have also been diagnosed with depression, panic disorders, post-traumatic stress disorder, irritable bowel syndrome, anxiety, panic disorders, violent mood swings, fibromyalgia, and early Alzheimer's and obesity. And these are just some of the physiological consequences of trauma, because if we don't calm down our vagus nerve, then the body will compensate And some of these compensations result in health issues, like I have just described for you. The vagus nerve may explain why chronic neck pain patients are anxious and depressed. Because if your vagus nerve is not acting in a healthy way, then you're going to have physical pain, physical symptoms, physical consequences. And what does it mean when your vagus nerve is not functioning in a healthy way? Well, basically that means that your body thinks you're in a traumatic situation. Your body thinks that the environment is not safe. Your body is reacting in a way that is for survival. It's just trying to survive. Let's talk about how trauma affects the brain. Because as I said, the vagus nerve connects to almost every system in the body. And so the nerves that come out from the vagus nerve are connecting to the brain that controls our autonomic systems and also how we learn, how we think, how we function. And so we have to think about what we can do to improve our body system functions through calming the vagus nerve. Childhood trauma keeps you in the basement, the downstairs of your brain. So if you think about your brain as having an upstairs and a downstairs, the downstairs part of your brain is in survival mode. It's activating the lower vagal nerve that is in charge of the survival mechanism. So when you have childhood trauma and you have not been given the resources you need to recover, it will keep you in the downstairs part of your brain, which is that never-ending cycle of survival mode, that constant state of low-level fear. The downstairs brain includes the vagus nerve that controls our survival responses: fight, flight, or freeze. Now, if you think of this nerve going from the lower part of your brain all the way down to your spine, it's important to understand the different segments of the nerve. The part that's connected to your brainstem and all the nerves that come out of that actually go into your brain areas that control thinking, cognitions, connections with others, your facial expression, your emotional regulation, all these different parts of your ability to be spontaneous and learn and be creative are a function of that upper part of your vagus nerve. The middle part of your vagus nerve controls your heart rate, your lungs, and so this is why most people, and according to some scientists, it's responsible for the fight or flight response in a traumatic situation. And so that area of the brain is going to result in higher resting heart rate, maybe shallow breathing, more like a panting than a deep breathing. So that's controlled by the middle part of your nerve. The lower part of your nerve controls your bowels, your stomach, your sexual response, and it also controls the freeze response. And so if you are having a freeze response or your lowest part of your vagus nerve is overactive, then you're going to have problem with digestion, problem with your bowels and incontinence and inability to have a sexual response. And so these are autonomic responses in the body and controlled by that part of the nervous system. So again, calming the vagus nerve is your goal. Now, the upstairs brain controls thinking, self-control, self-regulation, emotional processing, and complex functions. It includes that upper part of the vagus nerve. They call it myelinated because it's got a protective coating around it. And it controls the capacity to learn and connect with others. So the nerve is in the body, not outside the body. And the body is in the present, it's not in the past. So you can only affect trauma in your body today, right here, right now, by doing things that help your body. Childhood trauma causes the downstairs brain to develop larger than the upstairs brain. So if you had trauma in childhood and you've grown up with that without any care or without any resources, then it's going to be likely that the part of the brain that connects to the lower vagus nerve is going to be larger. So you might be way more emotional, way more angry, difficult to get along with, more reactive to your environment, more, just have many more health problems and struggles because that part of the brain is larger than the upstairs brain. Okay, well, let's talk about what could help. Play is one of the most effective ways for people of all ages to heal trauma and adapt to loss. That's what we do at Kids Hurt Too. When we bring children together, they play together, and we provide that safe environment so that they know they can play and be safe at the same time. We focus primarily on safety because we know that children need safety in order to calm their vagus nerve. And then, of course, we give them that environment in which they can play creatively, imaginatively. The scientists also found that it takes 400 repetitions to form a new synapse in the brain. But if you do it through play, it only takes 10 to 20 repetitions to form that synapse. So play is very healing to traumatizing, grieving persons who may lose their ability for spontaneity and imaginative play. Play is nature's greatest tool for creating new neural networks and for reconciling cognitive difficulties. Play heals the brain by growing connections between the upstairs and the downstairs brain. The more connections you have to the upstairs brain, the more you're able to manage your responses, to manage that sense of fear or that anxiety, to manage your emotions. So the upstairs brain, we need that. We need connections to be built, and play is how you can more effectively and quickly build connections in the brain. Safety, play, and social engagement are key components to health, growth, and restoration after trauma and loss. Safety is first because safety is the most important. You have to feel safe in order to be calm. You have to feel safe in order to play spontaneously and creatively. You have to feel safe in order to connect with other people. That is the most important. Play for children especially is important. Adults can play too. I did a play therapy with adults program some years ago, and it was very effective, very powerful. And of course, social engagement, which now is kind of difficult because we're having to practice social distancing, but we don't have to stop social engagement because we can do that now through online, through phones. We can write letters. That's what we used to do back in the old days. But continue to stay engaged with your family, with each other. Maybe not face to face, but certainly there are a lot of resources for that. And they're key components for your health and your growth and restoration after trauma and loss. So that's a lot of information. So hi, Anna. Nice to see you. Thank you for watching the show. And if you've just tuned in, you're watching Inside Times, and we're talking about health, growth, and restoration after trauma. Appreciate hearing from you. Sorry about the technical difficulties, and some of the sound isn't coming out too good, but people are fixing that by plugging in their earphones. Thank you, Sandra, for plugging in your earphones. Mika and Mori. Hi, Mori-san and Tomoyo-san. Thank you for watching and tuning in. It's so nice to see that you're able to tune in. And this will be recorded, and you can watch it again later, and maybe it'll be a better presentation with respect to the technical issues.
Right.
So let's go into talking about play a little bit more. All living creatures play, even tiny little one-celled amoeba. They play. I know it's kind of bizarre to think about, but all living creatures play. And the interesting fact is that those that play the most survive the best. So it's important to play. The drive to play, especially in childhood, is protective, but often trauma leaves us feeling unsafe, and therefore we can't play because we're in survival mode, because we have to watch for dangers and we have to be careful and cautious. And so that'll interfere with play and prevent us from play. But we need to restart that drive to play because it is protective. Therapeutic play happens in the least restrictive and safe environment that encourages connections with others. I'm not talking about play therapy. I'm talking about play that is allowed without restrictions. It's not like playing sports or board games that have rules and regulations and you have to do it this way and that way and get better. No, it's imaginative and you can play whatever you want, and the environment is safe and supports your play, and with other people around you knowing that it's just play. It's okay to play. It's not dangerous as long as nobody gets hurt and you don't hurt yourself. Those are the only limits that we put on children's play at Kids Heart 2.
That's why I play.
That's why Hero plays. Give lots of options, choices, so that children can choose what is healing for them. And children will choose the activities that are healing for them if they are given those options. So at Kids Heart 2, we have lots of different activities that the children can choose from. The environment must be safe for people to be able to move from the downstairs isolation brain to the upstairs brain that's responsible for engagement. Imagination and play are where we can safely practice regulating feelings associated with trauma and loss. And safely practice regulating those feelings through play. How can you help when you know that a child or someone close to you has been traumatized? How can you help? Well, you can help. That's the good news. And you can be helped if you have been traumatized. First of all, encourage imagination and social engagement. Now, right now, we need to do social engagement with social distancing, which is a challenge for all of us and maybe our new normal. But we have to encourage children staying engaged with you, with your family, with each other, with their friends, either through the phone or the internet, and to encourage that imagination through crafts, through play, lots of different activities. The most important thing I want to communicate to you today is to provide safety. We need safety in order to heal from trauma. We need a sense that people around us are going to accept us and love us unconditionally as long as it's safe. We need safety. And I can't say that enough. Safety is our basic need. It's just right above food, water, and air on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So children understand that at a very deep level, the importance of safety. Be a safe person. How do you be a safe person? Create a safe relationship. How do you do that? Provide a safe environment. How do you do that? Ask your child, ask yourself, do you feel safe? Is this safe? And sometimes you don't know if it's safe or not. So ask yourself, does this feel unsafe? Is there something I'm not sure about? Trust your distrust. Sometimes that is your best friend, distrust, not trust. So trust can be overrated when what you need most is to pay attention to when you feel something isn't right and you're not trusting. Say often to your children, I want you to be safe. I'm doing this. I'm keeping you at home because I want you to be safe. I'm not letting your friends come over or let you go over to your friends because I want you to be safe. Safety right now is something that is in our face. We have to stay home. We have to social distance. Unless it's absolutely necessary to go out, we have to take those precautions. So always check in with yourself, with your child, with your significant other. Are you safe? Do you feel safe? I want you to be safe. We need others to feel safe. We need a social engagement system, a family, friends. We need other people to feel safe. We isolate because we don't feel safe. So we need other people to be safe so we can feel safe. Other people help regulate our limbic system, which is how we co-regulate. I talked about this last week. We all live in a system of co-regulation. We are responding to each other all the time. So we need other people. And we need to ask other people to be safe or to find people who help us feel safe. And if they don't help us feel safe, then we need to rethink those relationships. States of feeling safe give you access to other parts of your brain where learning and creativity happen. When you feel safe, you can learn. When you feel safe, you can create. Give unconditional love. Hi, Midori. How are you? Keiko-san. Sandra-chan. Nice to see you're
Trust,
on.
distrust.
Yeah, trust your distrust. There we go.
Ooh. Taro-san.
Taro-san.
Hey.
Oh.
No, my high school baseball player.
Oh, wow.
He used to play baseball.
Thank you for tuning in to Inside Times.
英語の勉強。
So we appreciate you watching our show today. We're almost through, and then we'll answer any questions you may have, or if you're overwhelmed by the information, I understand. First and foremost, give unconditional love. You know what that is. That's that kind of love that we get from God, that we know through God. And if we don't have God in our lives, then that's the kind of love where we feel completely accepted for who we are without anyone passing judgment over us. Try not to interpret the behavior of others. You haven't walked in their shoes. You haven't had their experience. We are whole people, and our behavior is only one moment in time of who we are, but it is not all of who we are. So if you judge people by their behavior, you miss their wholeness. So just work with the momentary experience. That's where love comes through. That's where understanding comes through. Avoid interpretation and judging the behavior of children, which I said. And Hi, Irene. Thank you for tuning in. Nice to see you're watching. If you missed this program, Insight Times, talking about health, growth, and restoration after trauma, then please be sure and watch it. It'll be available to you later on. Let your response show openness and acceptance. So when you respond to somebody, let's say your child is having a temper tantrum. Maybe you could say, wow, you're really upset. I wonder what's happening. Oh, you are really, really mad. Oh, you don't like that. And that's going to happen. You can be calm in the middle of a storm. Consider yourself the eye. You are the eye of the storm when somebody is having their emotional dysregulation. So just be open and accepting as much as you possibly can. Trust that children will do whatever they need to heal. Children know how important it is to heal their bodies, and they will do whatever it takes, especially if they feel safe. If they don't feel safe, then they will stay in trauma mode. They will stay in survival mode until they feel safe. So again, provide that healing environment by making sure safety is your number one priority. Always, always be safe. So thank you for tuning in. And I'd like to go live to a live video of me, but my computer is not allowing me to get out of presentation mode. So perhaps at this point in time, I can sign off on that part. It's still not letting me move to sharing our faces. Well, here we are. Oh, you get some voice.